Welcome back to the fifth episode of Gupshup with Garima, where we have another super interesting guest who is going to talk to us about consciousness and life. So here's welcoming Ankur Rupani.
Hi, Garima. Hi, everyone.
To start out, that was quite a hook. So, Ankur, can you give us a one line intro to yourself?
Well, one line introduction, I would say maybe a consciousness student.
Oh, that's lovely. Yes, some of the things we do, like consciousness of, in my case, classical music. I think we stay students forever.
Sorry?
We stay students forever. We never.
Absolutely.
So, for the benefit of all of my friends who don't know Ankur, he's a man of contradictions. He's excelled in academics, doing engineering from IIT in India, then successfully completing masters in engineering from the USA, and then something stirred in him, and he shifted gears and went into spirituality, completing another degree course in spirituality, and now he has crafted a very unusual life for himself. What could have been a corporate job with crores in bonuses and salaries looks very different now. So let's ask him what makes him tick. So, Ankur, I've given a brief, zoom through to people about your life. So, can you tell me if there was something unusual about your childhood or your upbringing?
uh, yeah, I think there was something very different because I still remember going to school without a bag.
Oh my God!
Or
I
sometimes I
don't
would
let my daughters watch this one. They watch every episode.
or sometimes I would go to the school with a bag, and everybody's bag would be like huge, with all the books, and my bag would be like this tiny.
How come? What was behind this?
Like basically, I used to learn on my own. I would just go to school. I would go to school just for the sake of it. But even at that time, I remember learning everything on my own. So that self-learning thing has been there right from school. I don't know how it came. Parents never had to tell me padlo. I was doing everything on my own, and that self-learning only actually led to all these things that you mentioned. So
That's really interesting. I have a laundry list of topics I want to talk to you about because we all need some yarn in our life and life purpose and everything. So, but we have worked ourselves to the rapid fire round. So, Ankur, are you ready for it?
oh my god, okay.
The only rule is you have to be fast, no thinking and pondering. Is that okay?
Okay.
All right. So here is the first one for you. Very easy, don't worry. Sadhguru or Baba Ramdev?
uh, Baba Ram.
Oh, that's cute. Interesting. I would not have guessed that. Tell me one.
Because currently every day I get up in the morning and do yoga with Baba Ramdev. It comes every.
Oh, wow. That makes a lot of sense. Okay, next one. Shorts or dhotis?
Shorts or
Dhoti.
shorts.
Okay. Mumbai wala. I can guess that. Okay, next one. Forest or sea?
C.
Ah, again, Mumbai. Okay, here's one that I cannot predict. Green or orange?
Green.
Ah, nice. Then something about music. Beatles or Kishore?
Beatles.
You're breaking a lot of hearts here, Ankur. Kya kar raha hai? Okay, next one is open-ended. What's your favorite song?
Favorite.
Song.
Favorite song. Um, Neele Neele Ambar.
Ah ha ha ha. Will you hum it for us?
Because that's the only one I know a little bit.
Thoda sa, will you hum for us?
नीले नीले अंबर पर चांद जब छाए ऐसा कोई साथी हो बस इतना ही काफी है.
But thank you. You're such a good sport. Yeah, thanks so much. Okay.
Rishi will tell you how bad I used to sing.
उसने पहले बताया होता, then I would not have asked this question. Okay. Last one for you, Ankur. Name something that you are afraid of or you can't stand.
Ah, wow. Too much cold?
Ah. फिर तो तुम सही जगह पे हो. Mumbai totally works then. Thank you so much. If I had a gift hamper, it would be totally yours. So or just order something from Amazon.
I'm imagining one.
Thank you. So, see, this is the part where we want people to tickle us, and now the part comes where we want you to inspire us. So, tell me, I believe that your education, your graduation was in Banaras. So, I can only guess that the transition from Mumbai to Banaras would have created some chaos. Tell me about that.
Oh, well, yeah, that was really tough. In fact, I remember the first semester, and it was towards the, like, in the beginning, of course, there was ragging and all that, but towards the end of the semester, I remember everybody would stay up all night for the exam
Why?
because nobody would study till the last day, right? Or the last week.
Excellence in education.
And people would stay up all night, and I was like, I tried that. So I started trying to stay up, and I ended up actually going into a depression.
Oh, my God.
Yeah, and so literally it became a very severe depression, and I remember, like, it was, I think, a physics exam. I went and I blanked out completely, wrote maybe the first answer and blanked out, and then I was like, oh, it's the end of the world. The kind of feelings I think these students who do suicide.
Yeah. Oh my God.
So,
But
I
that's
can.
amazing that you're confessing to all this with a smile on your face and you're so relaxed as you talk about it.
Yeah, now we can after so many years, but at that time it was so tough. Because that's why I'm able to relate to all these students who commit suicide, because when they get into that zone, you are totally like, you feel it's the end of the world.
So then how did you actually not go that way? What saved you?
Actually, so what happened is, yeah, mind had become blank, and I was like, kuch bhi samajh nahi aa raha hai. I was scared to come out of the room. I was scared to meet anyone. I was scared to go to the bank. So it was such a bad state. And only thing that helped me actually was when the exams got over and I left and came back to Bombay. So that train journey actually uh, opened it up.
How come? Tell
Literally,
me more about it. How can a train journey save someone?
because when I traveled in the train, then suddenly as I was looking out of the window, I could feel something opening up. Like, I could feel that there's the world which I was staying in. I literally felt it was opening up, and that there is a bigger world. It's just not that tiny world I was living in. So, and then I saw the trees and the mountains and everything while coming back. And yeah, I think actually nature has always helped saved me. So
That
that,
is incredible. Yes, I
yeah,
I have also felt so often that looking at maybe a river or a stream, it just gives me so many insights into life and gives me a perspective that helps me through so many things. Very true.
absolutely.
Yes. Which is why also it's so important to stay in tune with nature as much as possible, take breaks with nature whenever possible. But I have more curiosity. You were doing masters in engineering in America. It's not easy, and I think you had full scholarship or something. What happened? How did you? Why did you change to spirituality?
Actually, that journey started in Banaras itself. If the first 2 3 years, Rishi also knows, we were having like there was this alcohol and so many things I was having. But then I met a friend in the final year, and I wanted to learn Sanskrit.
Okay.
So he told me, okay, come over. And then I said, okay. So I started going to his room in the morning, and he used to then start with Bhagavad Gita. So he started teaching me Sanskrit through Bhagavad Gita.
Oh.
So then just that 1 month with him, and he never told me to stop eating non-veg. He never told me to stop drinking or doping. And everything just in that 1 month got clean. Like I just stopped on my own, and I just completely transformed. I don't know how or what happened, and I just started on the spiritual journey. And actually, I had a spiritual quest even earlier. I used to do dynamic. I used to read books of like astronomy, like Edge of the Universe, where is the origin of life. So I used to read all that. But with Bhagavad Gita, the transition kind of towards spirituality started. And so then when I went to US, I had that thing in me. There is something deeper I'm looking for. And so I was finding the engineering a little bit. I mean, I was doing well over there also, but I was not feeling very fulfilled. I was not feeling very comfortable. So then, after I finished my masters, I started looking while I was doing my job, some programs which could blend the two, education and spirituality. So that is what led me to the second masters.
So you have shared that it was only a 1 month exposure to Gita and Sanskrit and this person, because I think that some person's own energy and vibe also influences.
Yes.
But I can't believe that if we come from nothing, then 1 month can be transformational. Or do you think that readiness to change, is that an idea even in the way you think, that we have to be at a point where
Absolutely, absolutely. It is like I said. For me, I was always inquiring. I was always inquiring, who am I, and what is this? So it was just that became a facilitator into that. So I
so a
think
catalyst sort of to
can
just make it really fast?
exactly.
Okay, so now I'm looking for your opinion on what is the role of spirituality in the life of a young person. They are so enamored with their beautiful body and this amazing world and all of its pleasures. What's the role of spirituality for them?
See, I'll just say two things. Okay, one is spirituality. What is spirituality? Okay, so I would say it is asking a simple question: who am I? And then whatever you do to discover that, that's a different ball game. Okay, everyone has their own paths or whatever, but I think that is the question: who am I? And then maybe if you go a little bit further, you can say, is God there and who is God? But even I am not even wondering right now of that question, but only if I stick to who am I. And if you look at science or education, it is we are asking so many other questions, like how this world works, what is gravity, what is this, what is that, right? So I don't see too much of a difference in it. Is only basically you are asking questions and you are discovering answers to your questions. So whether you are young or old, I believe that it is just which questions come to your mind and what questions are you exploring. As simple as that. So Newton, for example, Newton saw the apple falling. His question came that why did the apple fall? whereas Raman Maharshi asked a different question. So both discovered different things. Newton discovered gravity, and Raman Maharshi discovered who he is. So for me, it's just what questions come to your mind. So for young students, I would say just encourage them to ask questions, and automatically spirituality, if that is their path, they will discover.
What I find really interesting in your conversation is that you continue to use the word if. You're not one to say danda maar ke everybody has to become spiritual. Spirituality is the only way.
Exactly. Everyone has their own path of discovery. So, like Einstein had his own path towards, at the end of towards his this thing, he started talking about spirituality later, but his path was so different. So, everyone has their own unique path. Even if you've seen this guy, Stephen Hawking, so towards the, though he said that there is no God, but if you see his book and his movie, you find it's very metaphysical in some ways.
But definitely, having a spiritual quest and believing in God does not have to go together, does it?
No, exactly. Like that's why I said your inquiry could lead you to different paths. And for some, it could be a path where you don't believe in God or anything, anybody or anything, but just you keep inquiring. And actually, for me, that's been the path. I wouldn't say I believed in God or anything like that. Even if you listen to Sadhguru, he also says, you inquire and experience on your own. He never says, start believing something. So I'm not saying that the other path is wrong. You can have a religious path also. Everybody has a different temperament, and according to that temperament they follow a path.
So, in that case, what do you think? I mean, how do you define consciousness?
Yeah, so that is the like when I started, even at that time I had started reading Raman Maharshi. So right now, in fact, everything is happening in consciousness. If you see, I am looking at you, the light is going in. So if you look at the science, the light is going into the eyes. This amazing instrument, whatever we call the eyes, through that light is falling in. Now it is falling inside on the inner lens. Now then the image is inverted and whatever happens, but where and who sees that? Where is that image and who sees that image, right? So if we go deeper into that, and then you realize ki, yeah, there is something which is actually seeing this whole, right now whatever we are seeing, all the five senses से जो हम अंदर अपने अंदर आ रहा है, वो अंदर कहाँ पे आ रहा है? What is there inside of this body which is recognizing all of this? So that is consciousness.
So, somebody could just say that it's like it's a thought, or it's in my brain. There's a process that is happening that because I know you. So I'm seeing these light rays and I'm saying this is Ankur, and I know that this is a laptop and I'm on an online session. So so it's like just the brain. Where is the scope for a consciousness?
Exactly. So this is the hard problem of consciousness. So if you listen to Swami, I'm forgetting the name, Ramakrishna Mission के एक है बहुत famous. So he talks about this hard problem of consciousness. There is a lot of debate and discussion going on whether there is this what Advait Vedanta is calling, our Vedanta is calling consciousness. Is consciousness there, or is it just the brain? But then, if it is just the brain, how does the brain how, where does the sense of I come in then?
Yeah.
So how does everything get integrated, the sight and smell and everything, and a complete picture is generated? Like there is wholeness to everything. There is, I don't see some part alag and another part, it's all into one this thing. So there has to be some substratum. Like if we have a painting, there has to be a the paper on which we do the painting. So there has to be something behind the thought, even before the thought.
Yes. I remember this conversation I was having with somebody around this consciousness, and we came to a point where I asked her, so this personality of yours, you're so proud of being an extrovert. Was there a time you didn't have this? And she says, yeah. I used to be very shy as a child. I have outgrown that. And so slowly we came to a place where we recognized that, of course, our body is totally different from how we were born. But not only that, our mind, our brain is totally different now. Yeah, so you switched from being introvert to being an extrovert, but you were never thinking, I am not the same person. There was something which did not change that you could stay identified with, even though your personality changed, your body changed, your memories changed, everything changed, your understanding about the world changed. So yeah, I think it's also
Absolutely, absolutely. And in fact, even if if I go from a scientific perspective, because in our masters there was a course called cosmology and spirituality.
tell us
One,
about
so the professor's name was Dr. Brian Swim, and in fact he's written a book and he's developed some videos on cosmology. So he did this experiment. He talked about this experiment. Let's say right now we remove everything from the room, everything, atoms, sub atoms निकाल दो, सब कुछ निकाल दो. So what is left? So they said that that is something called quantum vacuum, and that quantum vacuum is the which is there right now, is the quantum vacuum which was there before universe started.
wow.
And this quantum vacuum is usme suddenly things spring up out of, so it is basically nothingness. So science has this term called quantum vacuum, and it is so similar to the word consciousness that we have. So because consciousness is also nothingness, it is just we can't see consciousness. We can't like Krishna says to Arjuna in Bhagavad Gita, you can't touch it, you can't smell. There is nothing you can't. It's not like I experience consciousness. It can't be an object. It is always the subject. So that's that nothingness. But again, it is very alive, because out of that nothingness has come everything. So that's what Brian Sim used to call it, quantum vacuum, which is nothing and yet everything, and that's what consciousness is. So that's where the science and spirituality a little bit coming together, and I'd written a paper on that at that time.
So fascinating. Yes, even I really enjoy reading, pop books on quantum work because I'm not a scientist. And yes, I've read that it's been seen all the time that if there is a quantum vacuum, things will just spontaneously, they've used the word spontaneously come into existence, spontaneously cease to exist. It's mind blasting. It's like trippier than anything you can smoke.
And if you read Yoga Vasishtha, you'll be amazed, because that's exactly what is written in Yoga Vasishtha.
Wow, what is Yoga Vasishtha?
Yoga Vasishtha is the scripture where Vasishtha talks to Ram. So Ram is he's actually as it's written there. Initially, Ram was very much depressed,
Oh.
and he wanted to like know who I am. And then Vasishtha came and gave him the Yoga Vasishtha.
And have you noticed in our sacred texts, it is always very important who asked the question. It is so interesting that they will always define that this was the audience, this was the receptacle which was asking for the knowledge, and then equivalent kind of knowledge was being sent to them. So this I find so interesting because as a psychologist, and if somebody comes to me and they're looking for some insights, I can't just dish them out, even if because of my experience or training, I can see so many things that if they knew, they would be able to make their life better. But I have to wait for that receptacle to be ready, and it was very hard. I think it's the hardest part as a therapist to shut up and wait for them to come to that place where they can receive it.
Absolutely, absolutely right. Because if if someone is not ready to hear something and then that is spoken, then it could actually backfire. So that is so absolutely right.
Yes, very true. So that brings me to my next massive curiosity that I have is how do you define success? Because clearly you had a career path that could have given you lots of wealth, but you haven't chosen, I mean, you just stopped dead in your tracks. So how do you define success and what is a good benchmark for us to pass on to our children?
So see, I think this is a question to should not be passed on to anybody. So children should discover on their own. Everybody should discover on their own and ask that question to themselves only. Do you feel happy? Do you feel? I would say, are you expressing your talents? So I would say, first of all, if you have some talents, if you are sharing those talents with the people around, so that is one way you can say, yeah, you are successful. Second is you are feeling fulfilled, you are feeling happy, and as a result, of course, money also could be part of it. Money is coming in, great, but I wouldn't say that money is the only criteria for success. It is more about like, for example, I'll just give you again, for a student, like let's say a student wants to know if Sachin today would be earning the same money but not being playing cricket, would you call him successful?
Hmm.
So if your God
We
given
might.
talent,
I think the world might think of him as very successful, but
yes,
he
but
might
but
be very
but he might be frustrated. He
sad.
might,
That makes
like
a lot of sense.
Sushant Singh Rajput. Everyone thought he was the most successful person, right? But for him, it was not. So I don't think we should tell anybody ki, this is the benchmark of success. Let everybody discover their own success.
But what I am getting from you in this a very beautiful answer is that number one, whether you feel happy in the place that you're in, and secondly, what you said that do you feel expressed? You feel that
Yes.
whatever gifts you had,
Yes.
you are using, expressing.
Using it, and are you contributing to the society? So I think these two, why I would keep, are you happy and are you making a, are you contributing to the society? So if these two are there, I feel.
That's lovely because recently in one of our group meetings, this was one question. When do we talk to our children about not being so enamored by the way success has been defined around them? Like I'm sure if I Google search successful person and go for image search, big house, big car, jewelry, only these images will come up. So somewhere it is influencing us unless we consciously ask that question. We consciously pause and wonder, like, do I believe in this definition of success?
Yes, yes, exactly. And it is very important to not program children in the wrong way, because if you program children in the wrong thinking that way only, yeah, only if I get this much money at this much, then only I'll be successful. But that is programming done. That was not something which came from within. So I think it's very important that as adults we should not negatively program. Let the children be, and or, and of course nothing wrong with money or anything, right? But let it not be that is the only thing, and that's the end of. So let them express themselves, and maybe through that expression, of course, if money is coming, great. So nothing wrong in money. I'm just saying, but it should be more about their inner fulfillment than outward show.
So I was saying that it's having two kids of my own. I know that even if we don't want to, we are influencing them. So it's all about, I think, becoming more conscious of our own selves because they are seeing us and getting influenced anyway. But
Exactly.
Next, I would love to hear about your tryst with the Shri Aurobindo Ashram, the mother, and their concept of education, because I think that's where we are now in our talk.
Absolutely. So that was a very interesting part of my masters, because like I said, my masters, the question itself which I started the masters was, how can spirituality and education be integrated, right? So that led me to Pondicherry at the Sri Aurobindo Ashram, and what I found there was really amazing. There was no there was no like spiritual teachings being taught. It's more about inquiry. Whether you look at science or history or geography, everything, they would have a lot of experiential inquiry into things. So and there would be so much discussion. No textbooks were there. So it was like I felt like I should go back to school. It was
It sounds very tempting, and now something to look at.
absolutely. And the most interesting thing was that, every inquiry was being taken, and it was said that any inquiry can lead you to the truth, whether you go from physics or biology, chemistry. You go deeper and deeper into any inquiry, and you can go to the like ultimate truth, which if you look at Stephen Hawking, he was trying to find out the unified theory which explains
Correct.
everything. And that
Yes.
theory is, if you look at it, it's nothing but consciousness. I that's what I discovery of the self, I think, is that unified theory he was talking about.
And just for the benefit of all of my viewers, I'd like to say that Ankur also has created some very powerful audio tracks that can be used by students and by us to center ourselves, to prepare for education and learning, or for memory and all of that. So, Ankur, tell me how our, a student can apply this information that is there in the Indian sacred texts and in the great leaders that we have had, and apply it to be happier in school, in college.
Yes, yes. Here, what really contributed to whatever I've developed is one teacher called Abraham Hicks. So I'm not sure if many are familiar with Abraham Hicks.
I've heard of him. I've heard his CD.
Yes. So the teaching of Abraham Hicks is very simple, that consciousness is manifesting through emotions and thoughts. Now, our emotions and thoughts, therefore, are indicator whether you are in alignment with consciousness or you've gone away from consciousness. So, for example, if you are feeling negative feelings, what Abraham says is that that's indicating to you that you've gone a little bit away. You got, they call it out of alignment with yourself. So, what they say is come back. So, basically, use your emotion as an indicator, and then you just take your like as if you're driving, you just turn your wheel and come back in the correct. So that I find a very useful thing for and anybody can understand it. It's very simple. Look at yourself, look at how you're feeling. If you're feeling negative emotions or feelings, don't say that they are bad. Treat them as an indicator that you've gone slightly away from your natural self. And then do a few things which they say, like, you could do meditation, you could do walk, you could do dance, you could do or nature walk, whatever. Do a few things to come back into alignment, and once you're in alignment, then take action or do the your next. So it's they call this thing always coming back into alignment with who you really are. So I find that teaching very simple, which children, anybody can just use it every day. Just observe yourself, and when you feel a slightly negative feeling, don't feel bad about it. Just recognize it, and then as soon as recognition comes, you steer yourself back into alignment. So I think that would be a
That that is a wonderful takeaway. Now I will definitely make sure my daughters are watching this one as well. Okay, so then share something about your own, maybe your own wellness routine, something that you do for yourself, which.
Yes. Yeah, I think, see, that is very important. Like to stay in alignment, having or a good routine is very important, because I have myself seen, if I don't follow a good routine, I go out of alignment. So, like my routine is pretty much simple. I get up around 7:30, go for a walk. Or I straight away start with yoga with Baba Ramdev. Like I said, it comes on TV every day. So there's yoga, and then I start with my walk, and then meditation and chanting. So many people have talked about this morning hour of power. So many coaches say, and that's what I also talk about, that this morning period is very important, because you are if you align yourself in the morning, your day goes into alignment. So all the students whom I coach also, I tell them, try to do your meditation and yoga in the morning, and then start your day.
Wow. Yes, you have said it very powerfully, because slowly we forget this, and then we wake up to our devices, what is the new message, what is the new email, what is the news, and we become very bahirmukhi, instead this was a time to maybe be with ourselves. And
Exactly. Yeah.
that's great. So one question that I hadn't written down, but now I'm feeling curious that during this COVID time, pandemic, there is a very rise in fear in humans. There is a lot of anger because if somebody gets it and they spread it, then there is so much anger and so much regret. If you get it, then you're feeling regretful. I wish I hadn't made these choices. Is there a way that you are using, that you suggest for us to deal with this time period, to pass through this time period relatively unscathed, unscarred?
Yeah, actually, not only this time period, I would say that what I'm going to tell, we can use any time, and that is very simple. Is just be a witness,
Wow.
because the more we can be a witness to what is happening, the more you abide in your consciousness, and the more you get caught up in the things, then you are going away from yourself. So easier said than done, but
Yes, that's what I'm thinking.
easier said than done, but that is what it is, something to be practiced. Like for example, today morning only I was hearing another talk of another teacher. His name is Gautam Sachdeva. So he talks about this a lot, about witnessing. So similar question was asked, that sometimes I'm able to do, sometimes I'm not, what to do. So he gives this example that when we learn to drive, first time when we learn, you'll go a little bit aju baju thoda sa karke, you'll come back. But then later, after 1 month, 2 months, you will start driving even in a crowded street, and you will not be affected even in a crowded street. So your witnessing is like that. Start witnessing, and then when you become better and better, even if a tough period comes, you can still witness.
Wow, that is really, you've given so many actionable and simple to understand techniques. Ankur, I'm truly grateful to you. This has been a wonderful, wonderful workshop.
Thank
Thank
you.
you so much. I'm fine to wrap up our session, but if there's anything that you'd like to talk about or spread information about, please.
Yeah, I guess I would like to just share that this program that you told about, the one that I do. So if anyone is interested, they can get in touch. Basically, I spread it over a month, and there are all these audios in it. So there is something called alpha centering, which is to center yourself and go to alpha level. There is a track called visualization track, where you go to the center, but you add a small element of visualization at the end, just like maybe 1 minute, just at the end of the meditation, where you just visualize your goal. So that helps to, if you're trying to achieve a specific goal, that helps a lot. And I have exams track. So those who are studying, before exams they can listen and then write the exam. Focus track helps to like you want to sit to study. Before that, even if you don't do my track, just have an intention that I'll sit for now 2 hours with focus, and then 2 hours you sit with focus. After that 2 hours you play or do whatever you want, that also you do with focus. So that is the idea, that whatever you do 100% in whatever you are involved in. So that is very one very important part of this teaching, that can we be moment to moment, so can we be totally in whatever we are doing. So that is the thing. So that program of mine covers a lot of these things. How basically idea is how can we live as consciousness moment to moment.
I would personally highly recommend this program of Ankur's. And one way of reaching him is through his Instagram presence, which is Ankur6767. Am I right?
Right.
So that's him.
Instagram is fine. Yes.
Perfect. So with that, I wrap up our Gupshup, but do keep watching. Next Thursday, we will be here once again at 9 p.m. with another lovely guest. Thank you so much, Ankur, for your time.
Thank you very much so much.